So welcome to this presentation and thank you for coming. Thank you also for the conveners to invite me. I'm really honored to be invited to this really nice session. And so today I want to talk about paleogeographic reconstructions with a special focus on Eurasia. And this is work done with many co-authors and friends, colleagues, which you see on this picture, and that I've been doing a lot on this stuff. So so why paleogeographic reconstructions? So as you can see on these really nice reconstructions that have been just put out for COP26 by the group in Bristol, they are fantastic tools to display and compare data and models. So on this, what you are looking at are reconstructions at the base and some of the results from the climate models, so both on currents here and also on the vegetation. And as of course, paleogeography is evolving in there. And so this is the main focus here, is how paleogeography works. So it's also a great tool for teaching and outreach, of course, but beyond this display and teaching, there is also a real scientific goal there to constrain models of climate, biotic models, and earth processes models. And so in the end, because of course, having an idea of the evolution of the surface gives you insight on processes involved in the interaction in the critical zone. So this is why I think, paleogeographies are important. And also because during the project that have been carried out in the last 5 years, this ERC project, we were looking at interactions between paleogeography, climate evolution, so both locally, so how climates, so how environments change due to paleogeography, and global climate, and how this is recorded in the global geochemical cycles, so the different sinks of CO2. And we looked also in this project at the evolution, so biotic evolution, migrations related to paleogeographies. And so what I realized actually in this project is that paleogeographic reconstructions are really important. They are keys for all kinds of model, and especially for integrating in a Earth system science point of view. And so, focusing on paleogeographies, that was a big part of this project, and it enabled to combine actually all kinds of data sets we got from this project. So a new model for the Indo-Asia collision, the whole land sea mask, so all these different epicontinental seas, what was their extent and when, and also the chronology of the Tibetan Plateau uplift. So all this was integrated in these paleogeographies for climate models, and this enabled to get some nice results both on climate and biotic models. So this was a work really the first steps done by Fernando Poblete, and he came out with 3 maps that we needed for this project: 60, 40, and 20 million years. And so what is special about these maps? Well, first, there is our data in them, so we could do what we wanted. But also, I think compared to previous efforts, there are many paleogeographies out there, but I think these are really more data intensive. There is a lot of a review of geological data. And all of this is accessible in the paper and published on a website I will show you. And so that makes these maps reproducible and transparent, and also a result of a collaborative effort. We are looking for more people. But what turned out to be one of the main blockage was that it's difficult to do these maps. It's quite complex. need some expertise and it cannot be done by anybody. And so this is what I want to present today. So how to make these maps more easy to make. And so we developed for this a tool we call Terra Antiqua that I'm going to present, and that's most of the presentation. And we also have all our results, the maps and the database on a website that was built also throughout the project that we plan to develop and has possibilities to interact and put your data. I will show you this in the presentation. Okay, so on Terra Antiqua, so what is it? It's so we decided, so it's a user-friendly and open source plugin for QGIS. So we chose QGIS because it's open source, and it also enables to program small plugins. There is a whole community behind this, and so this is nice. But in fact, if you don't know QGIS, you can easily still use the tools. You need limited knowledge of QGIS and GPlace to get across the exercise. And so, but we also, so we organize workshops and we have tutorials and there are manuals, so to make this accessible and easy to use for students at different levels. It's also easy to install, and if you're interested in the intricacies, I will not talk about it, but it's based on Python code and with some GDAL libraries. And this is what it looks like actually. So you have all the tools from Terra Antiqua that we developed here, and then all your data, all your files, what you create appears here in these different shapefiles, so which are layers on the typical GIS software. This is the workflow, so how things are done, which gives you an idea how it works. So we start off with the modern topography. That's very important. It has some implications on what you can do, what you cannot do, but this is well, for the Cenozoic, at least, that was the best starting point for us. And then you need to use a little bit of GPlates to rotate, to cut the topography and rotate the blocks. And so for a certain period, or like I think this is like 30 million years ago, you get your topography rotated. You can rotate also some data with GPlates or with the software, the website that we developed, and have all this in the right position. And then you can combine this with paleobathymetry. So there are some published files for that. Some very nice papers have been published, and so you can use that. But the tool also allows for reconstructing yourself the bathymetry. I will not go into detail, but it's possible to do it. And then you compile both topo and bathymetry. There are several options in this tool to basically try to minimize the blank, so the white areas on this map, and the artifacts, but you still have a lot of stuff to deal with once you've done that. And the first one is to set paleo shorelines. So this is quite a task because you need to. So there are some shorelines published, but you need to modify them, to rotate them, and include a lot of data. So there is we have a link to the to fossil data to see if you have marine or continental conditions. We can use also lithofacious maps and all kinds of stuff. And then, so the tool will apply different ways of interpolating the surfaces around paleo shorelines that you have defined. And it can be done globally on a set of continents as you wish. And okay, and so then you get your map. It's already looking quite good, but you still have the modern topography on there mostly. And this is where things get interesting and also complex because you can now with either modify the topography and bathymetry or create new topography and bathymetry. And this will enable to make mountains higher, bigger, to make basins, seas, subduction zones, whatever. And for this, of course, you need to check out some data, some databases. But yeah, I think for me, this is the most exciting part of the deal. Okay, and voila, that's it. We also have some secondary tools, a growing set of tools. I will not go through them in detail, but you can, for example, you can set different sea levels. You can do some isostatic compensation and so on. And yeah, building new tools. As we go. So this is an example to show you so how to, for example, create topography. So you have some masks that you draw, and or you can import, and then on these masks, so here, so you select the background topography and then the masks, and then if you want to build a mountain range, here very simply you give the maximum elevation, minimum ridge elevation, percent of ruggedness of the mountain belt, which will be created in this case, not modified. We just create some new topography, and then certain widths, and then we use some random functions to create or generate some kind of realistic topography, and we get these mountains here with a small valley in the middle. For this example. This is another example on the same area. So here we recreate a deep ocean, and we selected two different masks to really make it look more realistic in the end. And so what you put in here is the maximum sea depth, the minimum, and then the shelf, so the shelf width and its depth, and the slope, also the continental slope. So this enables to make some basins, not everything, but quite a lot already. Yeah. So then everything is put all together on the website. So are the results of our maps. And here, so what we can show on this are all the data that was used for the maps. You can also download it. And you can also put user data to be rotated. So you can rotate your data and put it on the map. And then, yeah, there are different projections, output format, and a forum. So hopefully people can say, okay, I don't like this area, you should change this. Yeah, but this is in development, and so we want to change the server, which is quite slow. And we are developing new maps. So now students, so master students are able within a project to make one or two maps. So we hope to have more slices quickly. We want to link to more databases. That's a bit more complex. And then more complex is to combine then this software, this platform, this web platform with a Terra Antiqua, so that you can make the changes directly on the map. So this will be probably for small changes. Okay, so we have a proof of concept project on this. We are trying to continue to get funded for applications, not only for science, but also for teaching, for medias, and for geo-resources. And so, for example, on this movie made by my colleagues in Utrecht, they start to play with this tool, and they looked at the development of future mountains in 200 million years. And so at the end of the movie, you see, yeah, this was all made with Terra Antiqua. So yeah, it looks not so realistic, but we are getting there. And so we want to develop, integrate this into the web platform. We want to make a simpler tool for quick fixes on the website directly. We want to work at higher resolution on smaller regions, maybe for the quaternary applications. And one interesting part is we are thinking already for a long time to make realistic drainages based on stream power law or some simple physics, not just random shapes like you see here. And so this is what I want to talk on my last slide, because this session is really a lot about surface processes, and I think there is a good link. One way is so there is a very interesting development looking at modern patterns of landscape to estimate the past evolution of the landscape. So this, I think, could be used to help us recreate the topography in some parts. But we could also use the paleogeographies as constraints for this kind of inverse model, so that you would have some steps where, you know, okay, the Tibetan plateau couldn't be that high, and so help with the modeling in this case. And another interesting possibility, I think, would be to integrate. So people are already working on this, some very interesting work. Here I'm showing from Tristan Salle, integrating source to sink models to regenerate paleo landscapes, and so I think in this case paleogeographies could play a very important role. And with this, I thank you for your attention and hope to see you at the session, so on Monday. Thank you very much.